So, Cap, Nick, it's Nick and me this morning, and I had my normal brain fart on a Friday, where I'm thinking, it's like everything is laid out, and you send out everything, and then of course the one thing I forget was for everybody else, for like Nick and Jarrett to hop in, was the link to the show. You got the link to the show in time because you come on at 9:30, but me being here at Hemingway Estates for the week, completely and totally zoned out. And now we got into discussions about when was the last time you had a soda? When was the last time?
That is one of the things that I did not drink or did not have when I was playing professionally. Okay. I just did not have soda. I specifically remember a high school trainer or physio telling me that essentially beer was healthier than soda. Me as like a 16-year-old to hear that, I was like, oh my gosh, like crazy. So yeah, I did not drink soda for like 2 decades probably. But now I do enjoy a Coke every now and then. Sometimes it has other stuff in it. But just a straight Coke. I had one over the holidays.
I was going to say, is it, you add Fernet or something else into it, or something of that vein, or are you mixing vanilla? Are you cherry? What are we talking about here?
No, more of the
other
alcohol
items. Other items, yeah. Some other things in there, yeah.
Yeah. So Nick, go for it. Well, this is where we've gone off the rails already.
I used to drink soda with regularity until I saw a video of someone cleaning a car bumper with Diet Coke, and like getting some of the rust and stuff off of it, and then I was like, okay, yeah, I think I might be done with this for a while. So
yeah. So, but yeah, we were talking about, since I am not a coffee drinker, and I am actually, tell you what, for those watching on Twitch, you will actually see. Here you go, right there. There it is.
Wow.
Yeah, this is. But as I've gotten older, and the doctor has sat there and said, "Dude, you kind of need to peel it back." I do. I don't admit it publicly, but I do peel it back. But Mountain Dew has like about 9 different flavors these days, and it's like about 8 too many. And so I got into the discussion this morning with everybody kicking off. It's like, do you have a favorite something where the brand has gone completely off the rails and they've done too many things instead of just sticking with the original? And so we got into this discussion. See, that's what Friday is, Cap. We just kind of go off the rails with these things.
Yeah, it's good to get off the rails sometimes.
Especially with what happened this week. And when I sent out the email this morning, obviously I wanted to talk about 2 things that impacted Atlanta United fans in different ways. First one, obviously, the shocking news yesterday, and that we spent the entire show talking about Anton being taken away from us far too soon at the age of 25. When I mention Anton Walkes, what comes to mind for you?
Just a great teammate, just a great human being, a great individual. Yeah, I think that's what you've seen over social media the past 24 hours, the outpouring of people just shocked because he's just one of the great guys. He was just a super liked person in the locker room by everybody. And that's rare. It's a rare breed. He was just infectious with his personality and just his willingness to do whatever the team needed for him to do, right? He played some D mid, he played right back, he played center back. He was a role player. He was a starter. He ended up wearing the captain's armband, so, I think everybody was happy for him when he was having success and playing well because he put in a lot of work and just the kind of guy he was in the locker room.
Nick Alifi for Michael Parkhurst. Go for it.
It's like we discussed yesterday. I mean, when you're in your 20s, you think you're going to live forever. When you're in your 30s, you start to see maybe a little bit of old age, and then what that could look like. And when you get in your 40s and so on, you expect to walk into the twilight of life, right? And to have someone who was so universally loved like he was, like that Anton was, that 2 fan bases, natural rivals based upon geography, arm in arm now, sharing love and memories, and, wishing that somehow this could be different, and for teammates to be, universally talking about it's the same thing over and over and over. This guy was beloved in locker rooms. This guy was beloved by fans. Number one, my condolences to you, Mr. Parkhurst, because that is it can be to lose any teammate, anyone that you share that kind of that kind of life with. It's got to be extraordinarily hard. So naturally, my condolences for you and everybody else who's suffering out there.
Yeah, thanks. It was a tough day yesterday for sure. When I got the news in the morning, it was like, man, this can't be real. Right? It's got to be a joke or a mistake or something. You're crazy because you just think of like preseason. I just put myself in his shoes or anybody's shoes. It's like preseason, you have an off day. You just want to get away from the game physically and mentally, right? So you go do things in cities that you don't normally spend time in. You get away and you're with buddies, and it could have been anybody. It could have been any of us at any point. And so that's the scary thing. You just think, man, yeah, it's just so fast and how it turns. Sad day.
And when it comes to reminders, it is one of those reminders about one of our listeners yesterday. It's like, don't sweat the small stuff, because at the end of the day, it is all small stuff. And just reminding us that we need to be in touch with a lot of different folks. It's a reminder that we need to be there for folks every single day. We need to be there for the folks that we're not in touch with every single day. And sadly, it's reminders like that get us back on track when it comes to being there for others, when it comes to the day-to-day.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. For all of us, and I hope athletes as well, learn. And I think it was the quarterback for Seattle, Geno Smith. He's kind of been around the block and been mostly a backup throughout his life. And I think he said something along the lines of like, my worst days or my bad days are like a dream for a lot of other people out there, right? To be a backup quarterback in the NFL is a dream. And so he's, he had a really good saying about like, he's got a great life, so don't feel bad for me or any type of thing like that. Because, I think as soccer players, we complain a lot about anything and everything. And so hopefully, it puts it in perspective of like how privileged and lucky we are to be able to play the game of soccer and go out there and have fun and enjoy it. So you never know when it could end.
Nick, go for
it. No, I don't think it could be put any better than that, to be honest. I mean, it's, for those of us, out there who, are trying to make sense of this, especially at putting in the context of the last 3 years, right? I mean, the last 3 years have just been clinically insane for everyone. But to watch anyone struck down in the prime is and the loss of what might have been and what could have been is just disastrous. And so, especially for his family, it's unbelievable prayers and that's I don't know anything else that can be said other than that, is that we all acknowledge this is a tragedy. We all acknowledge that there's a family that's missing a dad and someone who was loved beyond measure. So now it's how do we move forward? How do we continue carrying his name along and making sure that name is remembered and uplifted and for Charlotte, that this is a rallying cry for their team and that they can unify and make sure that they play this season and to carry on that legacy, and for all of us Atlanta United people that we need to do something very similar. We have to hoist his name up and remember the times that he was here and all the joy and the energy that he brought and keep that love and energy going.
Totally.
Now, Cap, when it comes to the other news of the week, Josef has a new home, and the way that things are structured in Major League Soccer, it was basically a transfer as you're all entities inside the league, and it was a reassignment was the term that was used. And so now Josef gets his fresh start at Inter Miami, and it will, the discussions were there in the press conference earlier in the week, and Atlanta United tries to do their players as best as solid as they can. Josef had family there. The Venezuelan community is large there, and now Josef gets his fresh start back to wearing number 17 down there in Fort Lauderdale now.
Yeah, MLS reassignment. I've never heard that before. So that's a typical MSL transaction. But I'm happy for Josef. I think that up until the very last moments, his heart was still, I want to be in Atlanta. Maybe I could still be in Atlanta, even though I think his mind knew that it wasn't happening. And if he wasn't going to be in Atlanta, Miami's where he wanted to be. And so I'm happy for him that he's where he wants to be. His daughter and his significant other live down there. So that's a perfect spot for him. So I'm excited for him. I hope that he plays with some fire in him this year and gets back to scoring lots of goals and having success. So I'm excited for him as a friend that he landed in a good spot. But it's big challenges for Atlanta United now. It's good that it's beyond them now. It's still a month before the season starts, and so that potential distraction for the next couple of weeks is now gone. So that's good. But obviously big questions on the roster, and hopefully that they've got already plans in place to make signings, because those are big shoes to fill. You're not going to fill them with one person, and that's just like replacing Miguel. It's just, you can bring in Pizzi Martinez and spend a ton of money, and you can bring in Barco, and you can bring in, Almada. But, there's only one Miguel Almiron, and there's only one Josef Martinez, right? There's no one has done to the league what he did in like the span of 3 or 4 years.
No doubt.
Or even the span of 6 years, including the injury. His numbers are just remarkable. So, if they can get close to replicating that with somebody, then it's a home run. So, but it's big pressure on them, right? This is a huge, huge moment in Atlanta United, because replacing a legend like him is difficult.
Nick, for Michael Parkhurst.
From a replacement perspective, I'm with you. I have no idea how, not just from an on-field perspective, but the face of the franchise, right? The face of somebody who organically became someone who was out there, murals and commercials, everything else. He was front and center with that. I have no idea how you replace it, but I do have to agree with you on one thing, Mike, that it's the whole corporate terminology of reassignment within the league is just, can we please just have someone go to the front office headquarters and just say, can we just at least get away from the corporate terminology and just get to like this one unified thing? It was a transfer, interleague transfer. It doesn't matter. Can we just update this just a little bit, please?
Yeah, it's just weird of like, was it a buyout or was it like,
exactly.
Atlanta pay out 80% and Miami paid out 20%, and then something happened. I doubt Atlanta United paid 100%.
Right.
Otherwise they would have just said it was a buyout.
Yeah.
It wasn't a buyout. It was, both teams must have paid something, and that's why he's not going to be a DP. Mm-hmm. Either way, I think that this will be a good insight into what Garth Lagerway's kind of ideas about a roster and a team are, right? Do they go out and buy and spend $10-15 million on a player to bring them in to replace Josef? Do they go out and get a young player? Do they go out and get an MLS guy? So I think it's a really obviously a huge signing, but a really good insight into how Garth thinks that this team should be set up for success.
And I think that it might be choice D, all of the above. I think that you might be taking some things from a bunch of different columns here, because you're looking at, you lose Dom Dwyer, you lose Alan Franco, Josef gone, Mo gone. So there are holes here, and obviously you've got, with losing Josef, you're looking, and Dom, you're looking at two positions at your striker position that you've got to sit there and it's like, okay, you've really got to focus on hitting a home run with those guys. And then it's center back as well. And there was the discussion about guys like Alexander Cayens and things like that. I mean, this is going to set the early tone for what we're looking at from a Garth Lagerwey administration. Garth now being more of the business side than he was in Seattle, where he was more the soccer side. But Garth sets the tone now with these early transactions. And I think that for anyone that you interact with, whether it's, adults or mentees, they get these doses of the real world and how things change and how you have to adapt. And I think that it's a message that can be applied in a bunch of different ways, looking at the situation for Atlanta United, whether you play the sport, whether you're a fan of the sport, whether you're learning about it. It's a bunch of different lessons that can be learned here.
Yeah, totally. It's the lessons are never ending, and they're always around us. And, it's just the way you view things and how you move on. And so, but when I look at the roster, you're right. Center back is so thin. It's very surprising now that you move on from Campbell. If you thought you were going to get rid of Franco,
but there's the trust in Noah Cobb, though, I would think at that point.
That's true. Yeah. That's a huge amount of trust in Noah Cobb. To think that he might, be, I wouldn't think that they'd have him as the number 3 center back for the season.
Yeah.
But to even have him as the 4 is a big step for him. So that would be fantastic, honestly. There's opportunities for guys now. There are, and so that's always the nice thing. And I know for the fan base it's difficult because you come attached to players. But just the modern day, it's so rare to have a player be in one place for so long. Unfortunately, just things happen, and I think that not always, but a lot of times players are viewed stagnant at their own club. They just view like, oh, they're, we can replace that person, and where other clubs are like, oh, we'd love to have him. And so for whatever reason that occurs, but it provides new opportunities for other guys. And, it's crazy to think now there's only one original left on the roster. Down to one and a half. I don't, Brad's a half.
Yeah. Polar Bear was around, but he didn't start from the beginning. That was Alec Can. Nick, go for it.
So a question I have then, when we're talking about center back depth, Fabio Cannavaro is one of my all-time favorite players. Somebody who, him and Maldini and Nesta, those guys, if you are general manager Parkhurst right now, and you are saying, I need X out of a center back, what am I looking for? What is the list you present when you go to your people and say, look, I need X, Y, and Z from the center back position? What are you looking for?
Am I working from a blank slate, or are you saying like, who would I suggest like attributes for like the number 3 center back that Atlanta United?
So you're working from a blank slate.
Yeah.
Okay. You're working from a blank slate. You're coming in attribute wise. What are you looking for?
Yeah. So here's the things. 1, it depends on how you want to play. And 2, it depends on who he's going to be surrounded by, right? Because, if you're going to play him next to a young player, you need someone with leadership qualities. If you're playing this person next to somebody like, Walker Zimmerman or even Miles, or, somebody that already has leadership, or even Parata, right? You can get a younger player and that doesn't have to have the leadership qualities. So it's important to know who you're lining him up with. But in a perfect world, if you need to win right now and you want the best center back possible, that's leadership is 1. Ability to read the game. is two. The game is so fast and physical that there's very few Miles Robinsons out there that can just physically dominate any type of opponent, fast, small, big, strong, whatever, it doesn't matter. So somebody that can read the game and comfortable playing out of the back. That's the modern game. You have to have that. And that's something that can be taught more. And, even Miles, has taken great strides in that over the course of his career. Some of this stuff is teachable, but, it really depends on the style, because in a perfect world, if you have somebody athletic like Miles, it changes the way that you play. It does. You can play one-on-one. You can have a high line. You can put so much trust in him. But if you have an older center back like myself or something, that can't cover so much ground and so much space, then it changes the way you play a little bit, and the way that you have to think about defending as a team, or how high up the field you can be, how much risk you can take. So it really depends on how you want to play a little bit. But leadership, playing out of the back, reading the game, comfortable on the ball would be my top things that I'd be looking at.
When you're hanging out with your mentees these days, you mentioned leadership, and I wanted to ask about that. With your mentees, is leadership these days something that is innate in the upcoming generation of players that you're interacting with, or is it a learned trait when it comes to being a leader and everything that's attached to all of those things? Are you finding more learned as they go, or do you still have those that have that aura about them the second they step out there on the pitch?
I think there's definitely some that have that aura. I've come across a few players who just seem to be leaders even when they're 20 or younger. Somebody like Will Trapp comes to mind. Like, I went into the Columbus Crew locker room and I was already 30, I think, or close to it. And he was like 22 or 23. And you could just tell this guy was a leader. Just the way he carried himself and the way he did things, just no fear and good communication. And, so he was a natural. I was not a natural. It was, for me, took many years to get there. And to learn things over the course of my career. So, I definitely teach that leadership is something that you can learn and you can improve. And it's a skill that you can continuously work on and get things from people that you're around, right? You're around other types of leaders, teachers and parents and coaches, and also teammates that you can learn good things and bad things from, of like what to do, what not to do, and form your own leadership style, because there's so many different styles and ways to lead people.
Nick, go ahead.
I like Joe Boss' question. Joe Boss is curious as to your thoughts on how Miles 1v1 stacks up to others you have played with or against.
I think a healthy, confident Miles is the best one-on-one player I've ever played with or against.
Really? Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who else would be in that top five?
On the defensive side, it's a good question. Trying to think of guys in MLS that I played with that were really good one-on-one defensively. It's such a tough skill and such a unique skill. Harrison Afful from Charlotte, but this was like 7-8 years ago when he was a lot younger. Was very good. Kamar Lawrence, when I think of like lockdown outside back defenders, he's so fast, physically strong. I think of him as a really good one-on-one defender. I don't know, that's curious. Curious thing to think about. But I say a confident Miles because I saw some moments before the injury where I thought that I saw an unconfident Miles for the first time in my time watching Miles, of like, taking, I don't know, poor mistakes and poor defending plays where it was like you would do that if you weren't confident of your athletic skills. Like that, it was like a play that I would do late in my career, kind of like, well, I might not win the ball, but I'm going to foul this guy. Where, Miles doesn't need to do that because he's so fast and so strong. A confident Miles, though, which hopefully we see this year, is definitely the best.
Yeah, and since you mentioned Kamar Lawrence, there are folks in the timeline who are saying Kamar Lawrence, those are two bad words when it comes to Atlanta United fans for what he did to Tito Villalba.
I know, for sure. And I think that we were fortunate that he missed those games in our run, right? He didn't play in either of those games, I don't think, or definitely not the one in the Bens. He's so good. He's tough,
no doubt. Nick, go ahead.
From the mental aspect of the game, I remember a certain tackle in the championship game that you were a part of, where you came sliding in. And
I vaguely remember this one, yeah.
Yeah, vaguely I remember this one. I believe you slid into the right to dispossess. And I seem to recall hearing somewhere that you said you scouted that there was tape on that, on how he likes to move in certain situations. When you talk to your mentees and you talk about the preparation, obviously kids aren't going to have access to, significant amounts of video replay and breakdowns and things like that. But how can you coach these kids to also focus on the mental preparation of the game, not even during tournaments, because, as a soccer dad and someone who played, and I know, you came up, obviously, in these crazy tournaments where you're playing 2-3 games a day, where you're watching other teams. Hey, you're probably playing these guys later. How do you coach these kids to keep their head on a swivel and keep their mind open in the preparation side?
Yeah, I think a lot of the mental preparation is beforehand with confidence and just having a good outlook and being prepared, and feeling prepared for the game. I try and tell defenders that I work with that to use the first part of the game to figure out the strengths of the opponent if you've never played against him, like as quickly as possible. How fast they are, how strong they are, what their movements are like, so that it can help you the rest of the game, right? To figure that stuff out as quickly as possible. But the other thing we talk about is when you watch games, and that could be, if you're watching another team your age play, or you're watching a Champions League game or a national team game or an Atlanta United game. I don't always watch the ball. Right? Watch what the people in your position are doing on and off the ball to learn, right? And there's so many different things that guys are doing off the ball to help them, so that when all of a sudden they're in the picture, it's like, oh, that was easy for them. Well, it was only easy for them because they saw it happening 5 seconds ago, and they moved here and they moved there and they did this and they did that. These are things you can't see unless you're watching them off the ball. Sometimes that's hard on TV, because you can only see so many guys. But if you're ever at a game, it's a little bit easier. But that's definitely one thing that I learned as a younger player, and that I try and tell kids these days to do.
Last question for you, and thanks for hanging out and especially discussing difficult things that have happened this past week. A couple days ago, it was International Mentoring Day. And I didn't know that, but in looking at timelines and things, you get to learn things in social media. When it comes to you as a mentor, how have you grown, developed, whatever word you want to use, when it comes to your mentoring and your mentoring skills, especially with your time that you and Greg are spending there at Beyond Goals? How do you think that your mentoring has evolved since you've started BGM?
Yeah, I think that just the ability to communicate with younger kids and try and to identify with them, and their personality has been the toughest thing and the biggest thing to learn, because you can't have the same conversation with every kid, right? There's some kids that don't turn on the video, and there's some kids that don't ask any questions and that are just much more shy than others. And then there's other kids that want to talk the whole time themselves, and, and finding what works, what tone, what message, and how to relate to each kid. That's been the part that I've probably learned the most about, because, there's one thing to have the message, right? But if you're not able to relate it to the person that you're trying to talk to, or the group that you're trying to talk to, it doesn't matter. They're not going to take it in. And so being able to take that message and spin it in a way that they're going to understand and they're going to want to take in and make sense to them has been fun to learn and to adjust to.
Very, very cool. At MF Parkhurst on Twitter, at BG Mentoring as well. Cap, thanks for hanging out with us as always here on the Friday Free Kick. We'll catch up with you in a couple of weeks, and as we're getting closer to camps and getting closer to games that are meaning stuff, we can get into that stuff as well. Have a fantastic weekend. We'll catch up with you soon, my friend.
Always a pleasure. Thanks, guys. Abster, I'm glad that scarf came in. Thanks for the support.
Yes, Abby. Yeah, well, see, and that's the point. It's like, it's all the way in the back. When we get back to Office HD, you get to see the scarf hanging from the back. And I got to remember to wear the T-shirt on one of these Fridays when I know that you're doing it, or at least have it close.
Hold up. There's T-shirts and scarves. I've been left out of the loop on these. The T-shirt. I would have my video going if I had T-shirt and scarves to promote the squad, man.
All right, I'll have to get you hooked up.
Well, see, but the thing is, Nick, this has been the big issue with Cap and our friends at Rhode Island FC. They run out of gear, man. I mean, am I not wrong, Cap, in that you guys are having problems keeping the shelves full?
Yeah, it's a good problem to have for sure, but it's a problem that we're trying to ramp up. I mean, obviously, production and shipping and all that stuff is still a disaster these days. So, it's not like we can order it and we're filled up the next week. So it's a good problem to have for sure, but it's a problem that we're trying to get on top of.
And as things continue to grow and evolve with Rhode Island FC, obviously we'll talk about that stuff as well. And we are planning for the remote when the stadium happens, and everything is lined up. So, Cap, enjoy your weekend. We'll catch up soon.
You too. See you guys.
All right, Michael Parkhurst and the Friday Free Kick. Nick, that's as Michael says, it's a good problem to have.
It's a great problem to have.
And Ricky is like, the T-shirt is fantastic. Ricky likes the crest, as you should in situations like this. But no, it is absolutely they hit a home run when it came to the look and the marketing and everything. And so it is without question that when things happen for Rhode Island FC, there will be remotes. There will be things happening out of Rhode Island FC.
Yeah, I love Rhode Island, man.
Yeah,
if for anyone who's never been into the New England area, and ventured into the wonderful land of Rhode Island, I strongly suggest you do so, because it is beautiful.